for lesson 5.3. These notes are over slope-intercept form, and there was so much key vocabulary that I just went ahead and gave you the definitions already. So they're embedded into the paragraphs below. So if you have a highlighter, this is a good time to get it out, but if not, that's okay. We can go through it together. A parent function, this is new. The parent function is the simplest function with the characteristics of whatever type of graph we're talking about. So in a linear parent function, it would be just y equals x. Or if you're talking more specifically function, the f of x equals x. But it's the same thing as just y equals x. So let me show you what that looks like on a graph. A y equals x is this line. And here's the equation for it, y equals x. What that means is the slope is 1. It's a hidden invisible 1 in front of x. So it's up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1 forever. And it has nothing after the x. So the y-intercept is a 0. So that means it goes through the origin. So it goes through the origin and its slope is up 1 over 1. And that's why it is called the parent function, because it is the most basic. There's no tricks. There's nothing fancy about it. It's not negative. It's not going up 2 over 1 or anything fancy. It's just y equals x. Okay. Some of the other things I wrote over here is that in order to be linear, it can't have a power. It can't be x squared. It can't be 2 to the x power. So you can't have a power. These would not be linear. They would not be straight lines. But a y equals 2x would be a straight line. So I don't have another color highlighter, so I'll just box this in. A y equals 2x, that's linear, and it's also over here. A y equals 2x, this is my line of y equals 2x. And the y equals 2x means the slope is 2, or 2 over 1. So it's going up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. So it's a little bit, I guess, more tricky than the parent function, but it still doesn't have anything afterwards, so it's still a plus 0, so that means it still goes through the origin, and it is linear because there's nothing squared. There's no powers there. All right, and then the last thing I want to point out is the y-intercept. We've kind of talked a little bit about this, barely, but I really want you to know it today. So when I'm talking about the y-intercept of the graph, that is the point where the graph crosses through the y-axis. That's why it's a y-intercept, because it crosses through the y-axis. So this is your y-axis, and wherever these graphs touch that y-axis is its y-intercept. So the y-intercept of these two is 0, because it crosses at the origin, which is 0. The y-intercept of this graph is 1. That's why it says plus 1 here, because it's going through the y-axis at 1. And the reason that the negative half is in front of x is because the slope is down. Remember, negative is going downhill. Negative 1 over 2 means it's going down 1 over 2. Let's check. From this dot, it's going down 1 over 2. Yep. Wait, down 1 over 2. Yes. Down 1 over 2 more. Yes. You can keep going backwards. 1 over 2. 1 over 2. And again, it's going downhill, which is why it makes it negative. And it's going down a very specific amount. It's going down 1 and over 2. And it started at the 1 on the y-intercept. Okay. Here's your key concept. The slope-intercept form. If I say, what is that equation in slope-intercept form? I want you to know that I'm talking about y equals mx plus b. I will write this on the board for several days, and I really want you guys to memorize it. M is the slope. We've kind of already talked about this a little, just not real specifically, and now you're responsible for it. And the b is the y-intercept. All right, so our slope is how steep the line is. Our y-intercept tells me where it crosses the y-axis on the graph. All right, so let's go down here to some practice problems. What are the slope and the y-intercepts of y equals 5x minus 2? This is my slope. This is my y-intercept, or the m and the b, remember. Y equals mx plus b. M is the slope, b is the y-intercept. So you're just writing this down. The slope m is 5. slope is 5. If you want to write out the word slope, you can, or call it m, same thing. And the y-intercept, which is b, is supposed to be plus b, and what I want you to notice here is this is a minus 2, so that means my y-intercept is a negative 2. All right, what are the slope and y-intercept of this? The slope is in front of x, it's the m, so that's negative half. Oops, negative half. And the y-intercept is the plus whatever is at the after the x, plus b is 2/3. So the y-intercept is 2/3. All right, now I'm going to switch it on you. Now I'm going to give you the slope, and I'm going to give you the y-intercept, and I want you to put it in an equation. So your equation again is y equals mx plus b, but m is the slope. So no longer will it say m, it will say negative 4/5. Y equals negative 4/5. X, don't forget your x. A ton of people always forget the x. There's always an x next to your slope. That's the rate that your line is changing by. Plus b. B is 7, so plus 7. Okay, let's do it again. Slope is 3/2, 3/2. So y equals 3/2. X, don't forget your x. And y-intercept is minus 1, negative 1. So we're going to put minus 1. All right, let's check on number 5 to see if you would be able to tell me the equation for this. It doesn't have dots, so you're going to have to actually pick a couple. So I see one here that would be a dot, and then it also looks like it crosses exactly in the corners here. So from here to here, you're going to count slope. It rises 1, 2, and runs 1. So it rises 2, it runs 1. So rise over run, 2/1. We're going to simplify that fraction. 2/1 is just 2. And that is my slope. That's how steep the line is. So y equals 2x. So we've got our slope. Now we just need our b, our y-intercept. And the b is, again, the y-intercept. It's the place where it crosses the y-axis. So let's look at where it crosses the y-axis. It crosses at right here, which is negative 2. So since it crosses right there at negative 2, my y-intercept is minus 2. Oh, this was multiple choice. So that is D. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, turn the page. Number 6 says write an equation for this line. So if you want to push pause and try it on your own, this is a good idea. If you're not quite ready for that, first thing you want to do is find 2 points that would cross through. I see one here, and maybe just one there. Is it just 1/1 every time? Yeah, it is. Okay, rise over run. Remember, first thing you should notice is it's going downhill. So actually my slope is negative this time. Instead of rising, we're falling 1 and running 1. So this is going to be a negative 1/1 slope. That's how steep it is. It's down 1/1, down 1/1, down 1/1, down 1/1. And we can simplify that to just negative 1. And the y-intercept, again, where it touches the y-axis, it looks to me like our line passes through the y-axis right here, which is at 2. So the slope is negative 1, the y-intercept is 2. Put it all together, y equals negative 1. Actually, I'm going to just call it negative x with the hidden invisible 1 there, plus 2. Slope is negative 1, y-intercept is positive 2. Okay, the next section is slope-intercept. Oh, okay, so we're going to now have to start writing an equation that is represented by just 2 points, 2, 1, and 5, -8. So here's what I would do first. I'm going to write these because they went onto 2 different lines. So that is hard for me to see. All right, here are our 2 points. First, I want you guys to find the slope. If you forgot how to find slope, let me remind you, it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So this is my x1, y1. This is my x2, y2, because this is my first set of coordinates, so that's why they're the ones. And this is my second set of coordinates, that's why they're the twos, but it always goes x, y, x, y. X coordinate is always first. Okay, so I'm just now going to take my y2 and subtract my y1. So my y2 is negative 8 minus 1. So negative 8 minus 1 over x2 minus x1. So 5 minus 2. All right, negative 8 minus 1, check on your calculator, is negative 9. And then 5 minus 2 is 3. And it's math, so we always simplify. Negative 9 divided by positive 3 is negative 3. So that is my slope. That is my m. My slope is negative 3. So now I'm going to use the slope and the coordinates. So here's some coordinates I've got to find my b, which is my y-intercept. Here's what I want you to do next. Write the formula for slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b. We already know the m. We just solved it. It's negative 3. I don't know my b, so I'm going to leave it plus b because I have no idea what b is. That's what we're trying to find. But I do know an x and a y coordinate. I actually know two x and two y coordinates. They're both right here. It does not matter which one you use, but you have to be consistent. Don't use the 2 on one of them, the x's, and then the negative 8 on the y. If you're using 2, use 2, 1. If you're using 5, use 5, negative 8. So I have a habit of just using the first one they give me. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to plug in x for the x coordinate and y for the y coordinate. So 1 is y. So instead of y, I'm going to put 1 equals, m is negative 3, x is 2. And now I'm just going to solve it to be able to find what b would be. What is negative 3 times 2? It's negative 6. What would I do to solve for b? I have a minus 6 next to it, so I'm going to need to add 6. I had to write really tiny here, but b equals 7. All right, so I have my m, which is negative 3, and now I have my b, which is positive 7. And if I know my m and I know my b, I can put it all together in a slope-intercept form equation and plug in my b and my m. So substitute m for negative 3 and b for 7, and that would be y equals negative 3x plus 7. All right, if you are ready to try one of these on your own, pause the video and try the next one. If you're not quite ready, I will work this one out too. Okay, the first thing I would do is write them all on the same line. So 3, negative 2, just so I can see it better, to be honest. And then if it helps you, underneath put that this is your x1, y1, and that this is your x2, y2. Because I know the first thing I'm going to need to do is find the m, the slope. So the first thing you have to do to find the slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And we're just going to plug them in. So negative 3 minus negative 2. Negative 3 minus negative 2. Write it exactly out like that. It's long and it's a little bit tricky, but we can do it. And then my x's are 1 minus 3. All right. Negative 3 minus negative 2. I don't want to mess that one up. Negative 3 minus negative 2 is negative 1. On the bottom, 1 minus 3 is negative 2. All right, if you tried this on your own, you might have gone wrong here because a negative divided by a negative, when I simplify this, would make it positive 1/2. Please know that if you have a minus on the top and bottom, that's a negative divided by a negative, which would make the whole thing positive. So I've got my m. My m is 1/2. All right, great. We've got half of the equation. Now I still need to get my b. So how you do that is start by writing y equals mx plus b. I know what my m is, it's half. I don't know what my b is, but I do know an x and a y coordinate. I can either use this one or this one, but I can use an x and a y coordinate. Just for a second, I'm just going to borrow it to plug it in just to help me find what b is. So I'm going to go with this coordinate. It doesn't matter. If you pick this one, you're going to get the same answer I do, but I'm just going to pick the first one. It's a habit. So I'm going to plug 3 in for x. So instead of x, I'm going to plug in 3. And instead of y, I'm going to put -2. Instead of y, -2 equals, and I'm just going to solve this equation so that I can figure out what b is. So half times 3 is 1.5. Check to make sure I did that right, but I think that's right. I need to get b by itself. So b is adding 1.5, so I'm going to subtract 1.5 on both sides. -2 minus 1.5 more. -2 minus 1.5 is -3.5. So my b is -3.5. So if I know my m and I know my b, I can put it all together, and instead of using m and b, I can use what m and b are. So it would be y equals half x minus 3.5 because b was a -3.5. All right, the last thing we're doing is I just want to make sure you can use your slope and your y-intercept and graph it. So here's what you need to do. You need to put your y-intercept first. So I sometimes circle it so I can remember to do it first, and I'm going to drop it on the y-axis at -1 because that is my y-intercept. It's my b, which is on the y-axis. It's my y-intercept, and it is -1. So you put a dot on the y-axis at -1. From there, how do you know where to put your next dots? This is your slope. Rise over run. If 2 is a whole number, you have to turn it into a fraction. A whole number 2 would be what fraction? It would be 2 over 1. So I'm going to rise 2 for every run 1. Rise 2 over 1, 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. That's the rate from this dot. Up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. And I'm actually going to keep going backwards and go down 2 over 1 in this direction, just because this represents a line that continues forever in both directions. And so the more dots you put on your paper, the straighter it's going to be. And please, please, please add arrows on both ends. That shows me that you understand this actually would keep going forever in both directions. All right, if you want to pause the video and try B and C on your own, go for it. If not, I'll do these with you too. Remember, I always circle the y-intercept because that's where you have to start. So on the y-axis, your first dot should be up here at +4. That's right there. Then my slope is down. See how -3 is negative? That means I'm going to be going down from left to right. It's going to be falling. And if it's a whole number, you have to change it into a fraction because this only tells me how many I rise or fall. It doesn't tell me how many I run. So -3 over 1 means from this dot, I'm going to go down 3 over 1. Down 3 over 1. Down 3 over 1. Straight line through it, arrows on both ends. All right, last one. First dot goes on the y-axis. Y-intercept is -2, so I'm going to go on that y-axis down here to stop, -2, and put a dot. Then I'm going to rise 1, run 2. My slope is up 1 over 2. That's my y's, that's my x's. This is my rise, this is my run. Up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. So from this dot, up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. You don't have to put that. I don't know why I did that. I'm going to go backwards in the other direction, down 1 over 2 as well, just because more dots on the paper makes it straight. Arrows on both ends to show you understand it is a continuous line.